The Health Department says medical practitioners will be engaged through a consultation process held by Parliament. This follows reports that many are concerned by the proposed National Health Insurance Bill. Health Minister Dr. Zweli Mkhize says these sentiments stem from the fear of the unknown. Well, he joins me now on the line to chat more on this. Minister, thank you so much for taking the time to talk to us this evening. Why do you believe that there's fear and rumour mongering here?
Well, people have not seen the national health insurance, and so they are fearing something that they have not heard, simply because many people are nervous that it's a change and therefore it might affect them somehow, and they fear what it might be. And all we're saying is that they need to give this change a chance. We need to engage with them so that the processes that are going on in Parliament, people must participate and express their views, because that's what it's meant for. But the department also is open for further discussions, particularly with the details of various regulations and protocols that we're going to have to be involved in. But national health insurance is happening all over the world. It has been very successful. We want professionals to know that it will depend on their services, and we really need them for the services, and they must not think of leaving, but they must think that there's a way we can engage so that ultimately all the concerns are addressed.
Well, one of the things that you have said is that this is going to be managed in the same way as institutions such as the Road Accident Fund as well as NSFAS. Now, when you look at RAF itself, you see that the AG reported to Parliament last year that practically it's insolvent, looking at the accumulated deficit of 26.22 billion, in fact 262.2 billion rand, together with excess of liabilities of assets over 262.1 billion rand. Then you look at NSFAS, which was then placed under administration, and the administrator himself says that that particular scheme is going to have to be reimagined and reconfigured in its entirety. Then are you surprised that if you're saying that it's going to be managed in such a way that then there is fear and concern around, NHI?
Well, we're not proposing NSFAS, we're not proposing RAF.
But you're saying that it's going to be managed the same way.
We're proposing national health insurance, and we have put up a different type of entity that will run this, and we'll put up a number of checks and balances. And what we need from the public and from professionals is to raise issues so that we can look at what needs to be changed. The NHI fund, the way it's structured, it's actually benchmarked on some of the countries where it has worked. And so if there's anything that is different that requires our attention, we'll be prepared to do that. But what I think we shouldn't do is that when something else fails somewhere, we must then transfer that failure to be a reason why something else cannot be done, when in fact the principle of social solidarity, equity, justice, and the cross-subsidization of people who are employed for those who are unemployed is a principle that is most important in establishing equality in health, access to healthcare in the healthcare system in South Africa.
But Minister, are you surprised, because it was your very words that said it would be managed such as institutions like the RAF as well as NSFAS? You said that, but are you then surprised when you're making mention of these two and you're saying that it will be mentioned in that manner? Are you not then, not understanding where, some of the concern could be coming from here, particularly looking at how these particular institutions have been managed?
We have said this will be a Schedule 3 entity in terms of the PFMA. And the first question was, this is going to be like ESCOM and SAA, and we're saying it is not. And we're simply saying that the fact that there are processes to investigate and deal with those particular entities means that we must correct whatever is wrong with those things. When people are fearful of something that is new, I'm not surprised. When people are complaining that there might be corruption, I'm also not surprised. But we are saying that we've actually put up a whole program which we call the Health Sector Anti-Corruption Forum to start dealing with the issues of corruption both in public and private health, because it's not just the public health that's got corruption. Private health has got lots and lots of problems, as the health market inquiry has shown. And all we're saying is that let's work together to correct what is wrong. If something else is wrong somewhere else, it will not be the reason why we cannot proceed to do what is important and mandatory for all the people of South Africa to have access to health care in an equitable basis, because the whole world, the United Nations, WHO, all of them are actually saying we have waited too long in South Africa. And that is what we're talking about. So when you deal with the mechanics of it, the bill basically gives you a framework, and the bill has got nothing that is untoward, that is unusual in any other countries. Some of the things are benchmarked across the various other countries. So if we discuss our specific details, it is acceptable for people to raise concerns and objections and so on. We don't believe that when people are raising issues about corruption that they are far-fetched. I think that we must all be intolerant of it, and we must actually fight if there's an issue of corruption. But when we say section, it's an entity which is under Section 3A, we're saying it is an entity where the mandate is direct and the transparency is there and that the checks and balances are there. So that's what we really mean when we talk about Section 3A of the PFMA.
Can you give us examples of some of these 3A institutions that you're saying that it should emulate? Because you were saying that there are hundreds more that have done well. Which are some of those that you're hoping this scheme is going to be, resembling?
Well, MRC, CSIR, some of those examples. So they are existing and they don't have the same kind of problems. But I think we should not be so pessimistic that when something is wrong, we must then condemn everything else that comes in the same system, because there are things that are wrong, the various reasons why things are wrong. But in the case of NHI, it has not been practiced before. So when we say it's a fear of unknown, we believe that people are only worried because of the fact that it's a new change. In fact, we've been in this discussion for a long time. In fact, the doctors, there have always been objections, but there's a lot more positiveness around the NHI than there was before. We're already talking to a number of family practitioners or private practitioners who have been frustrated by the way things are being done under the medical aid system, and they've got all sorts of challenges, and we believe that the NHI becomes an improvement. There have been queries that were raised by the Judge Ngobo under the health market inquiry. All of those need to be corrected, and part of the solution will come from national health insurance. That people will always be suspicious and be concerned and so on. It's fair, it's natural, and I think that we must always listen to those, find ways to correct them, but that's not the reason why we can't proceed.
I know that you're saying that you've got some buy-in from some of the doctors that have been frustrated about how, medical aids have been, in fact, administered. Let's look at, the private sector in general. How much of a buy-in do you have from them?
Well, you're looking at the private sector. Why don't you look at the millions of people who are uninsured, who don't have medical aid? Why don't we look at the people who have got to be given the same kind of care as those who can afford, who can pay through medical aid, and those who are employed? Why don't we look at the numbers of people who should be getting treatment and are not able to get treatment because the system is imbalanced? And I think that's where the inequity lies. In fact, this is one of the things that should have been corrected long ago. As far as I would be concerned, I think South Africans are too used to inequality. And so when you argue from a point of preservation of privileges, and I'm saying it's a wrong way of looking at it. The point that we need to deal with is that when concerns about corruption arise, that is what we need to deal with, and therefore we're looking at proposals of what other people think can be done, because already last year, when there was a presidential health summit, the various stakeholders made suggestions, and we implemented those. And so if there are new suggestions, we're ready to implement them as well. And
Minister, I will ask you again, how much of a buy-in do you have from the private sector?
Okay. Private sector is a whole arena of people. The change is going to be on medical schemes, and we have said that at the time when the NHI has been implemented, we will actually be negotiating and discussing what changes need to happen on the medical aid. At that level, we will then be engaging to talk about what solutions they will have in solving, for example, the problem of the packages, that you've got 87 schemes with 200 packages which are not similar, and therefore the clients, the people, the public does not have a mechanism of benchmarking to know if there is value for money on the medical aid. And so that issue needs to be discussed. We have not made any ruling on that. The second area has been the issue of providing health services based on the need of the population, not on where the financial interests are. This has been raised by the Health Market Inquiry, and they've actually raised the question that 90% of the beds are actually owned by only 3 companies, and it's an anti-competitive behavior. It needs to be solved. And so NHI would be able to deal with all of those issues. So when we get to that point, we'll be able to deal with the issues. At the moment, as we talk about the NHI, we're talking about a system that will cover all South Africans, and I think in all fairness, the views of all the majority of the people who don't have that access must also be heard, and we must not be balanced only on the basis of the few that might be feeling that there is an issue that might be affecting specific businesses, because there is a transformation process that we're going to embark upon.
Thank you so much, Minister, for taking the time to talk to us this evening. That is Health Minister Dr. Zweli Mkhize.